Hey everybody, Kennis Russell here. I hope you're doing great. Today I'm going to talk about home theater and different kinds of unique connections that you may need as you're setting up your home theater, because I'm needing them as I'm setting up my home theater. Check it out. A couple weeks ago, a company called EMK contacted me and asked if I would do a review of some of their products. And I looked through their catalog, and at the time I was thinking about the music side of things that I normally do, and I thought, you know what, there's not really, I'm sure these are great cables, but there's not really something that I can really use them for. And then it hit me, home theater. I have two things that I really need, and they were able to provide them for me. The first one is, I have kind of an antiquated system in parts of it, like my AVR, my receiver amplifier is pretty old. I'd say it's about 12 years old. I'm gonna upgrade to a Denon or Marantz probably in the next year. But for right now, I'm just kind of using this guy. Well, it doesn't have HDMI out. It only has the component out. And it just is not, I don't want to use that. So what I have to do is run my HDMI cable into this splitter essentially, or your channel selector, and then run the HDMI out of that. So how do I get audio from my, that's going into the DVD player? How do I get that into the receiver if I'm going through the switcher? Well, the answer to that is I'm using this digital cable here. This is a Toslink cable. And basically what this does is it's pretty much a lossless signal. It's going to get all of your information going from your source, one source to another source. And I'll show you my setup here in a second, how I exactly hook this up. But it's a really great solution, a workaround. The other thing is that I had with the system that I'm setting up is all of my AV stuff is in the front of the room by the screen, but my projector is in the back of the room. Now my room is about 20 feet or so, and so in order for me to run a cable, over the ceiling or around or however I would get it, I'm gonna have to spend about maybe 50 feet of cable. And if you've done any research in home theater or have any experience with long HDMI cables, a lot of times they just don't work. Once you get past about 30 feet, HDMI does not work really well. Matter of fact, there's been times I've had kind of cheaper HDMI cables that I've been more in like the 10 to 15 feet and they don't work. So HDMI is a really nice cable. It's a cool technology, but it does have its limitations. So how do you get beyond that? Well, my current setup I have right now is a wireless setup. And so I'm able to beam the switcher that I'm plugging the HDMI into actually beams wirelessly to my projector, which works pretty good. And so far I haven't seen any noticeable difference in between HDMI and the wireless HDMI. But the one thing that it is a difference in is if anybody ever stands in between the receiver and transmitter, or the transmitter and the projector, you get dropouts. So like the screen will go black for a second and then it has to find it. Sometimes I have to like manually go and tell it to search. Anyway, I don't like that. On a movie situation, it's not too bad because you're usually sitting the whole movie, but in a situation that I have, like where I'm watching UFC or something like that, it's not good because somebody stands up and then all of a sudden the screen goes black in the middle of the fight. It's not the best situation. So what I've chosen to do is do a solution which is a CAT5 to HDMI converter. And that's what this is. And actually a buddy of mine gave this to me, so I was very, very thankful. Eventually I'm gonna upgrade these to a 4K version, but right now my projector is just 1080p, and so I don't really need to do that. But basically what happens is, this is the receiver, and this is the transmitter, and basically I come in with my HDMI, so like my HDMI cable goes in here, so from my little switcher that I've got up there that is currently transmitting the wireless, it's just going to transmit, it's not going to transmit anything, but I'm going to use it as a switcher. I'll show you here in a second. But basically I plug the HDMI into this, and then out of this is a CAT5 cable or actually I'm using a CAT7 cable, and then that gives you almost up to 300 feet that you can run an HDMI signal. You plug the CAT signal back into this, and then it plugs into, it converts it back into the HDMI. So basically, your long run that you have is a CAT cable, CAT6, CAT7 cable, and so the problem that I have with it, they're not necessarily a problem, but my concern is bandwidth. How much bandwidth am I going to be able to have with a CAT5 cable? So I went on Amazon and looked at EMK's stuff, and they had this cable on here. And I'm going to read you a couple things about this. This is the EMK Ethernet cable. It's a CAT7 RJ45 cable. It'll do anything you need a CAT cable to do, you know, like hooking up your PS3 or PS4 or whatever number they're at these days. I stopped playing video games in college, so your Xbox, situation like this, if you're running a landline from one room to another, this would be a great solution, which is actually what I'm going to do also. I got 2 of these. This one's still in the package, but the second one of these I'm going to run from my theater, which is where my router is at, to this room, which is where the studio is at. It's an adjacent room, but I'm going to have to go around the wall, and it's going to take probably 50 feet for me to do that. And this is it right here. I want to show you a couple things about this that I really like. It is, I'm going to just show you that it's kind of flat like this. So it's not your typical round cable that's going to be bulky. This would be very, very easy to hide behind something. So if you were to even put it along your carpet, this would be very easy to just shove on the corner of the carpet next to the trim. Or if you're running up a wall or something like that, one of those pieces of plastic that you get at Home Depot that hide the wires. This is very thin, but also each one of these wires in here, each one of these pairs is a thick wire. So even though this is a thin like shielding and cabling, it's flat, it's a pretty thick inside here, which allows for high transfer rates as well as it just holding up better, and it is shielded. And at the end here, these are gold-plated contacts here. So when you're looking at the speeds, so this gives 10 gigabits per second up to 600 millihertz a second. There's not any information that I know of that you're going to be able, that this is going to throttle down the speed of. As fast as you possibly could go, this is what you'll do. I actually have a big spool of Cat5 cable, like hundreds of feet, that I could do these runs without a problem. Just cut them to size, put new ends at the end, and have my Ethernet and my wireless or my HDMI cable here with these converters. But I'm really glad that EMK reached out to me, because this actually I'm more comfortable with this solution. Both the connectors and the fact that this is flat, it's going to be easy to move and pull wire and all that kind of thing. And it just seems like this is a very, very good cable that I'm not going to have to worry about. I'm a kind of the guy that when I put together a system, I'm not tweaking it all the time. So I might do some major tweaks. So with my home theater, I might, buy, like I said, a new AVR, but I'm not going to buy a new AVR for a while. I might buy a new amp or something like that, or but it's going to be a while. Once I install it, I like for it to be installed. So the last thing I want to do is 3 years from now, when I get 4K, to be able to have to run a new cable just in order to get the signal to go back to the projector. So I'm very, very happy with this. But I wanted to show you my system and why and how I'm going to be hooking up this right here. All right, so I'm standing here in front of my rack here. Again, I'm putting this together. This is not a completed part of my project here, but this old receiver here, this is the Pioneer VSX 815. I mean, it's an okay thing, but it's kind of these days it would be considered not that great. So, I mean, you could probably pick these up on eBay for 50 bucks, if that. So, like I said, I'm gonna upgrade to a Denon or a Marantz probably within the next year or so. But for now, basically what I have to do is, since this doesn't have HDMI inputs, normally you'd have like an HDMI in all of your ends, like maybe 4 inputs or however many inputs you have, and then you have an HDMI out that's going to run to your receiver or your projector. I don't have that, so what I do is on this right up here, this is my the wireless system for the wireless HDMI for the Epson projector that I have, which I think is the 3600E, something like that. Don't quote me on that. Anyway, on the back of it, it's got some inputs here, and like it's got an optical input, and that's right here. I'm going to unplug this guy. This was the old cable that I had, and I'm going to use the new cable. And so here's our new one, and this looks like it might be a little bit better quality than the other one, even though I haven't had any dropouts with the old cable, but I'm happy that I got this one as well. Let me plug this guy in here. Okay, got him plugged in. Then you have, as you can see here, I've got HDMI 2 plugged in here. That's my Blu-ray player, the Oppo Blu-ray player, and it's going in here. Normally I have in the one I've got a Apple TV, but I moved it somewhere else when I went out of town for a day. Anyway, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pretend that I have all of my inputs in here, but I've got the one, and then there's HDMI out right here, and I'm going to plug my HDMI cable into the out. There we go. And then I'm going to plug the HDMI into the input of this converter. So I'm going HDMI in right there, and it's got I need to plug it up to the power, but the other side of it too, I'm going to plug this into the CAT7 cable and then run this line up to the projector. And the other end of the projector, where did I put that? Yep, here it is. I've got the other end of the CAT7 cable here that will plug into this receiver, and then I will have HDMI going over 65 feet basically, which is, I mean, 50 feet's really pushing it to the limit, but 65 feet is really at the farthest you're ever really going to get HDMI. I've heard of some people say they got HDMI to go to 100 feet. They sell 100-foot cables. I don't know. I don't really buy it really at all, but this is not going to have a problem. I mean, the Cat5 technology is just amazing. I mean, or this is Cat7, I'm sorry, but the Cat cable technology, I'm amazed at how much data can be transmitted across a cable like this. Anyway, hopefully you like this video. I'm really thankful for EMK for sending me both of these cables, both the Cat7 cable and this Toslink optical audio cable. I'm going to put the links in the description down below if you want to check those guys out. But anyway, Kennis Russell here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video.